I'm gonna move the bird.
I think you need to, yeah, take the
I gotta
bird
take
out.
the bird.
Take
and
the
put him
bird out.
somewhere else.
He's making that sharp noise. Just put him like in the dining room or something, or just put him in his cage. As long as we have the door shut, I think we'll be all right.
All right.
Okay. Well.
All right. Hopefully you'll stay quiet.
Oh, I deleted Twitter from my phone because it was annoying me.
Oh, okay.
Well, it wouldn't connect. Or I shouldn't download it right now. It's gonna suck bandwidth. Turn this off.
Okay, we are live, by the way. Hang on. I'm gonna mute you guys real quick if you don't mind. Well, I don't have to. I don't have to be muted like that.
Let's pretend like I was talking.
Okay, you're live right now.
Wait.
This may work.
Hey, it's a miracle. Miracles happen every day.
They do happen.
They really do.
So we'll wait a few minutes, let some people join.
All right.
Okay.
And then
If I go on Facebook Live on that link on another computer, will I see?
No, it's YouTube.
Okay, YouTube. Will I see all the people that are in here?
Yes, you will.
Okay, let me get another computer.
Okay.
I don't know where I'm gonna put it. Oh, you know what? I can use this.
All right.
So I'm gonna just go to this slide right now.
Yeah. Start where you
Hang on.
I'm just gonna make another desk.
Okay, we got people joining, so we'll. Oh, let me go and do this.
Look, let's do this.
Okay.
Oh boy, I got a lot of stuff up here. Jiminy Christmas. Let me get off these.
Hey, if you guys are watching right now, just in the chat box, tell us where you're from.
Oh, it's a lot of pages.
She's getting that other laptop, isn't she?
Yeah.
Yep, I want to watch so I can see the comments. Okay.
So if you're in the chat room, if you will verify that you can see us and hear us, that would be great. Tyler, Texas, Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, Atlanta, North Georgia, Raleigh, Ohio, Kentucky, Colorado Springs, Very, North Carolina, Seattle, Pittsburgh, Southwest Oregon. They can see and hear us.
All right, so what do I do? Just click on threats in the homeland? Is that
No. Reload and you should see a live window. If you just go to the PrepperNet, New York,
good.
Phoenix, Indianapolis, Cascadia.
Okay. I'm not seeing that.
If you go to PrepperNet's channel.
Right, that's where I am. I see threats in the homeland, but I don't see a live thing. Let me try it again.
South Carolina, California.
Oh, there. Okay, I saw it. It just came
Greenville.
out.
Greenville's
So
nice.
we got 64. We'll wait a few minutes. It's just now 9:02 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, just we got South Carolina. We got
A lot of people from our neck of the woods. or at least where or
So we got
place in
six.
Tennessee.
Matthews, North Carolina. That's my neck of woods. Pennsylvania.
There you go.
So yeah, we'll get started in a few minutes. Raleigh, North Carolina.
Washing me out too much.
What? You
The light. See that? It's very light.
You can turn it a little bit to the side.
Upstate South Carolina. Texas. Yadkin Valley.
Okay, where are you seeing this?
If you click on the video, it should open up a little chat window to the right. Colorado Springs. Did you click on the window or? And on the right, it should.
Okay, I saw, yes, on the right side, it said live now. It was a little thumbnail that said live now. So if anybody's only seeing the screen with just one person, Forrest, on the right side, there's a little shot that says live, and that's where I clicked.
Oklahoma City, Idaho, upstate South Carolina, Colorado, Trenton, South Carolina, NC Foothills.
Crazy, baby. Hey, Southern Prepper. Hey,
Hey,
Oh yeah, I forgot. I invited Southern Purple One tonight. I'm trying to
Hello,
get
David.
him to be on next week
Oh,
with
cool.
me.
That'd be awesome.
I recognize so many of these names. Look,
Oh, sure.
Charleston,
Hi,
South
Laura.
Carolina,
Susan,
Wisconsin.
David Hawk, Will. This is awesome.
Again, we'll wait a little
I
bit
feel like
longer,
I'm
guys.
with friends.
You have a friend?
I feel like I'm with friends with these people here. This is so cool. You know, I love technology. I don't want to have to do it. Thank you, Forrest, for hosting this. I don't want to have to be the one like pushing all the buttons, but I love the fact that we can talk to people that are all over the world and all over the country and just be sitting here, you know, in our own home without having to get on an airplane right now with a
Well,
bunch
some of these
hot-
people we didn't invite, though. No, I'm kidding.
But we,
Crashing the
but
party,
we
are you?
have invited them, so they're
Crashing
welcome.
the party.
They're welcome.
Okay.
Everybody's invited.
Oh, so I took the screen so they can see us. So don't do anything crazy.
I know.
So we'll wait again. I usually start about 6 or 7 minutes into it, and we'll get started.
Is this
So-
too bright?
What,
We're a
Casper?
little yellow.
What did you say, Casper?
Casper, we're a
You're
little
a little
yellow.
light.
I
You're a
have
little
yellow.
too
Should I
light.
go get the white light? White
Oh.
light, white light.
It doesn't matter.
I'm
Y'all
gonna
look great.
I'm gonna go get it and try it because I feel like we're yellow. I don't have jaundice.
I feel okay.
All right, here's my giant scrubs. These were yours when you used to wear them.
Them were the days.
Okay, I did make a few of my friends moderators inside the chat room, guys. If you guys can just check it out, I guess. I'm looking back here to see if there's anything going on. Just name or just your city where you come from, and we'll get started. You look great, Southern Prepper One said. Hello from Michigan.
Hey, hi.
So, yeah, Amy's all into how she looks. See, I've got the right light. I'm in my bunker that is out a ways from my house. I mean, it is a ways from my house. And the other night I was doing a podcast, and my neighbor, he's a good friend, he came and he walked down here, and see on the front door of my little bug out building, I have motion sensors.
Oh.
But he walked from behind and hit the wall, and I about beat him.
I can imagine. Wow.
And so hopefully, and he's probably watching, knowing him, and he'll probably come over and do something crazy. So again, with it's 9:07. We'll get started as soon as the mover, Nurse Amy, is ready.
I'm here.
She's here,
I'm
and
here.
she is she's
That's all right.
like the big tech person
I
for
try.
us.
No, but I'm happy to have Forrest.
Yep. Durham, North Carolina, Alaska, Lincoln, California, Raleigh, Bill, North Carolina. Greetings from North Carolina. Okay. Soon as Amy, I tell you what,
I'm
I
ready.
can get us started.
I'm ready. Yeah.
Why
Is this better? Are we less yellow?
I don't know.
we look yellow. You had 30 minutes we talked to, and you didn't care then.
Yeah.
When we're live.
But I didn't see, you didn't make the screen like giant. When you made the screen giant, I was like, oh no.
Okay, I'm going to get started.
Okay, we're ready.
We'll get this
Go.
thing playing. So, hey, I want to welcome everyone tonight to our presentation with Dr. Bones and Nurse Amy. We're going to talk about a variety of things when it comes to, virus, flu, the coronavirus, all that. We're going to talk about all this. So last week we did have another, we talked about the threats and how to get these warnings, and we'll go over that. But I do want to mention that I have never streamed to YouTube with this software. So this is a first time. It all seems to be working well right now, but there is a Murphy's Law that's involved. We'll have, if something goes wrong, if you'll go to our Facebook group, we'll give you updates there. But this is being recorded twice. So if everything fails, it still will record on my local machine. So hopefully it won't. There will be a replay. I guess I'll post that on our Facebook site and maybe email that out. This is brought to you by PrepperNet. PrepperNet is a organization where we try to connect preppers in the United States, actually in the world. We have almost 1,000 people outside the United States at this point. Well, it's right at 700. I round up when I need to. And what we do is we have local meetups in areas near you. And the goal is for you to go and meet other people. PrepperNet's ultimate goal is for you to build community locally, not on the internet. And so when you go to our main Facebook page, we only have like 3,500 members, but you've got to remember each city has their own Facebook page. And so we encourage you to get local with your with your groups. So we have meetings where every one of these P's symbols are. You can see the Carolinas. We did start in the Carolinas. We here's a listing if you want to see the listing.
Wow.
I'm hoping you can see all of them. I think there's 62 cities that are on here. We're currently talking with 15 plus people to create meetups in their cities. So if you're interested, you contact me. We do all the work. We help train you. We have support mechanism for the leaders. But the goal is to network people locally so they can build community, get in a survival group, get in a MAG group. You can't do that online. You got to meet people, chat with them, get to know them, train with them, and then possibly get into a group. But there's our city listing. I hope there's one near you. If not, you go on PrepperNet and you fill out a form and you let me know you're interested, and we will talk on the phone. So, and again, it's preppernet.com is where you would go. That's kind of our main hub, but then we have a Facebook site. We've got all kinds of things. Real quick, we got an alerts app. We have like old traditional forums. We have a Zello night, which is nationwide. Anyone can call in. It's like a push to talk on the phone. We have all kinds of events. We got events coming up. And so just go to PrepperNet. You'll see it. Join our Facebook group. You'll get it. I do want to mention, I do a podcast. It is very somewhat mediocre. We just started it back. We're on all these little symbols apparently are where you can get podcasts, but we just started in January and we already have 15,000 downloads, which is just mind boggling that people actually want to listen to our podcast. We will actually take this and put this to a podcast later as well. But it's called Prepping Academy. It's on all the iTunes, Stitcher, all them things. If you used to listen to us, Kyle, which everyone thought I killed and buried in my yard, and that's why I moved, he is actually back. And he's with me. We're actually been recording several. And then Tenderfoot, if you remember Tenderfoot, he's still around. He's not dead. And he's going to come back on as well. So that's Prepping Academy. So last week we did a threats in the homeland, and it was Stephen, Stephen from Alerts USA. I cannot pronounce his last name, but Stephen, it's a great one. It's on my podcast. Go check it out. Next thing I want to talk about is, hey, this is a serious subject because people are dying, and it is serious, but I'm going to make fun of them sometimes. They're going to make fun of me. We're going to have a good time about this serious subject. So I just want you to kind of be aware that we will laugh, we will joke, but we understand that this is a serious subject. We do understand that. So is that right? Will I make fun of you guys any?
Oh,
It's okay.
It's
Totally
okay.
okay.
I'm an infinite repository of being made fun of.
You know what? I mean, this is a serious thing, but if you can't laugh on a daily basis,
right?
I mean, it's the best medicine, right?
Best medicine.
The best
Yep.
medicine.
Right. Probably
Yep.
builds immunity. In fact, I'm going to call it the #1 immunity builder that's natural is laughter.
Yep.
Awesome.
Natural immune booster.
There you go.
So we have this crisis somewhat, not really in America, but it could be. And so I got two experts, Dr. Bones and Nurse Amy. They do doom and gloom. They've written books. They got an online store you can buy things. They've been around in this industry. I bet everyone on the video here that's watching, I know you've probably heard of these people before. I own both these books. Actually, and actually I have two of the survival medicine book. Oh, do y'all remember? Oh my goodness. The first time I had you guys on my podcast, what I did, do you remember?
What year? Wait, let's ask him what year.
That was like 2 years ago. I mispronounced your names and I got your book name wrong. Do you not remember that? And y'all just
actually I do. I do slightly, but that's okay. You're one of pretty much everyone.
Okay. So, but
I don't remember much
okay.
from 2016 to 2018 because of my Alzheimer's.
You don't have Alzheimer's.
Oh,
You just have old.
I have Alzheimer's.
He has Alzheimer's.
Alzheimer's disease.
okay. Well, tonight we're going to talk a lot about the coronavirus, and so I wanted to bring some shots up so that they
Serious
could.
stuff,
It's sealed.
guys.
It's sealed.
It's sealed.
We're not drinking. It's
Yep.
sealed.
But I like that coronavirus with the lime. Again, I don't know. These memes are going crazy on the internet.
They are. You know what? You got to laugh sometimes. Again, this is so serious. There are horrible things happening. A lot of this discussion tonight is not going to be fun. We're not going to be smiling a lot. We're going to kind of sound like your parents.
Right.
You should put gas in your car and you shouldn't drive with a windshield that's cracked, and make sure you come here home on time. We're going to sound like that a lot, but in between these things that are serious, we all do need to take time to laugh. It's you work hard and you have to play hard too.
Yep. So I'm going to make fun of this photo. I want to start off with some laugh.
Oh.
You guys look like you want to conquer the world and like save every human being. I mean, you look mean and mad.
I am mean.
We're serious.
I'm mad
We're
about
serious about what we
medical
do.
preparedness.
Don't do that.
This isn't the people I know. I know these people.
Right. The smiley, happy people.
Yeah. So
Because we're optimists.
and so I asked them a couple years ago, okay, I mean, you guys work as a team, but who's the boss? And that was clearly stated in this photo.
Wait, ready?
Yeah. So without any, I mean, everyone knows who you are. Joe and Amy, a lot of people know them as Dr. Bones and Nurse Amy. They run Doom and not Gloom, Doom and Bloom.
That's right.
And they are live with us right here in the house. And so, welcome.
Thank you very much. We're very glad to be here. Thank you guys for listening to, well, some old guy drooling on his shoes. That's me.
I have that in the, if you guys watch the end of our videos, the 2 face mask videos and the 2 coronaviruses videos, I actually have stars that show, and then they have the credits, and it says Dr. Joe Alton, starring as a really old doctor.
The truth.
And I'm just the editor. I'm the editor and producer, but he's a really old doctor.
You can't hide
he
from the
says it
truth
every day.
Well, let's go ahead and get started with this. This is important. I am, as Forrest said, Joe Alton, MD. I'm retired but actively licensed medical doctor, fellow of the American College of Surgeons, American College of OBGYN, and this beautiful person is
Amy Alton. I'm an advanced registered nurse practitioner, although Florida has changed us to APRN, advanced practice registered nurse. I will never use that. Thank you very much. But I will always be an advanced registered nurse practitioner in my own right, no matter what they try to change us to.
But you're also a certified nurse
midwife. And I am
midwife.
a certified nurse midwife with a master's degree in nursing.
That's right. Well,
I do want to say this before you get started. They're going to tell me, I have the slides on my computer, so they're going to tell me when to go to the next slide and stuff. So if you guys hear us interact.
Right, I will be saying that.
Because that's what they're saying.
Absolutely. All right, so together we're the founders of doomandbloom.net. You can go to the next slide for us. And we have, gosh, over the years, I think you'll find over 1,200 articles, videos, and podcasts on medical preparedness on our website at doomandbloom.net. If you can go to doomandbloom.com too, we're also there. Next slide. We design an entire line of medical kits, including personal protection equipment for infectious disease events, something we're going to be talking about today. You'll find them at our store along with books and DVDs and USBs and all that stuff. That's the shameless plug for tonight. Oh, by the way, you may know us from our podcast, the Survival Medicine Podcast. It's been on for a few years. Our Facebook group is Survival Medicine Dr. Bones Nurse Amy, and our YouTube channel is indeed Dr. Bones Nurse Amy, Dr. Bones Nurse Amy. In modern times, I go back one. I just want to say this about, just in general, about medical preparedness. You know, we have become dependent so much on the high technology that has eliminated so many infectious diseases. And so it's almost surprising that I'm here having to talk to you about them. You know, we have antibiotics, we have antiviral medications. They're available for a lot of different infections. They work well, and physicians aren't afraid to use them when they're necessary. So I don't blame you out there if you feel sort of, well, invincible. There's a certain invincibility that comes when it comes to your health in modern countries with a lot of money like we have in the United States. Modern medicine is a safety net. And I'll admit to you right now that tomorrow or next week, you are not going to be part, most likely, of some epidemic outbreak. And maybe it's small, but it's almost infinitesimal. However, over the course of a lifetime, that might not be the case. Or maybe if you include your children's lifetimes, well, you know, it may not be that unusual for there to be an epidemic outbreak or some other disaster that affects your life. And so it's very important to be ready, and not only just in general with the beans and the bullets, but also with the bandages. Next slide. Before we begin, I guess I have to say, we're going to stray most likely from the conventional medical wisdom at one point or another in this talk. We often do, but we still like our medical licenses. We're still both actively licensed in the state of Florida. And so here's our disclaimer.
You want me to read this?
Yes.
Any and all information in this lecture is for informational purposes only. It does not constitute medical advice and is not meant to substitute for evaluation by a qualified medical professional. Please seek standard and modern medical care whenever and wherever it is available.
All right, next slide.
Hey, you know, on these slides, you have an automatic thing. So
oh, no, that's the PowerPoint. You have to, unclick that when you start it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's a timer. You have to unclick the timer.
Well, so anyhow, tonight we're going to talk about viral outbreaks, including the current epidemic that's raging right now in China. And when I say epidemic, next slide, what do I mean? How is an epidemic different from a pandemic? How is epidemic different from a disease that is what we call endemic? So let's have a quick definition of terms. That's going to be very, very quick. You probably know this. You may not know this. Everybody's a little different. An epidemic is a rapid, widespread occurrence of an infectious disease in a community that is not always there. That is a disease that is not there. The flu, for example, is not there 365 days a year in your community, but it is usually seasonal. So you can say that there is a flu epidemic if there are a lot of cases of flu in your community. That's different from a disease that's what we call endemic. An endemic disease is a disease that is regularly found among a particular population or in a certain area. So let's say in the tropics, malaria would be an endemic disease. And endemic diseases are different from epidemic diseases. Epidemic diseases are also different from pandemic diseases. A pandemic occurs when an infectious disease goes throughout an entire large area of the globe, usually at least a couple of continents and more, 2 countries and 2 different regions, or as in the case of the Spanish flu in about 100 years ago, well, the entire world. Let's go to the next slide. Now, the issue with pandemics is that there are alerts to tell you when we are concerned about it. Now, when I say we, we're talking about the World Health Organization. So when we say we, I was saying the world's medical authorities.
Right.
So there are different types of phases, and these go as follows. Phase 1, pandemic alert goes out when a new virus seems to be circulating in animals. So example, maybe avian flu, or let's say, no, let's even better, hoof and mouth disease. Okay, so you could lose all your cattle to hoof and mouth disease, but it's very unlikely that there's going to be any infections of hoof and mouth disease in humans. So that's a phase 1. Phase 2, that disease has actually caused infections in humans. So let's say the avian flu of a few years ago, it caused some issues with regards to poultry workers, people that had to deal with ducks and chickens, most of them in Asia, basically did wind up getting infected, but they weren't infecting each other. So that's a phase 2. Phase 3, you get small clusters of diseases that are occurring in humans, but not entire communities. So that's something that you'll see if, let's say, influenza may not affect an entire community, but it may affect a small cluster of people. Maybe the elderly or perhaps the infirm may wind up getting the disease when other healthy people might not. Now, a phase 4, now you're really starting to get into some real outbreaks. So community-wide diseases occur, and the risk for a pandemic now starts to get a little higher. Now, that risk for a pandemic is pretty much about where we're at with regards to the new coronavirus that's come out. I'm going to talk about that later, but this is the phase that we're currently at with regards to that. There are a lot of communities in a certain area that have outbreaks of this. There are about 8,200 cases and about 170 deaths, but there are no community-wide outbreaks elsewhere, even though there are individual cases in other countries, in quite a few other countries, as a matter of fact. Now, phase 5, they have a spread of the disease between humans is occurring in more than one country in a particular region. And that a typical example of that, the classic example, is Ebola. Ebola in 2014 affected Liberia, Sierra Leone, and a couple of other countries right next to each other. So, but it was only one region. So that's a phase 5 pandemic alert.
Let me ask you a question, because I'm sure this is on everyone's mind. You know, today we just heard that there's someone in Chicago who was a husband of a patient who they knew or found out had coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
So we're obviously at least a second country. And I know that there are other countries. I know you're going to describe that. So does that technically mean that we're in phase 5? I mean, what?
No, because we don't have community level outbreaks.
Okay, so it has to be
So we have
it has to be a few people that got it from that person or other people.
What has happened there is a woman that was visiting Wuhan, China, which is the epicenter essentially of the epidemic in China, left China, went to the United States in Chicago, which I think is where she lives.
Which is where my daughter lives.
She's about 60 years old. Her husband is about the same age, I would expect.
Right.
And
He
wound up getting sick. So indeed, there was human to human transmission. And by the way, that's the 5th country in which there's been proven human to human transmission. But no country other than China has had a community level outbreak. And that's the difference. That's why this coronavirus is still at level 4, not at 5 yet. And because it's still just in China in terms of a community level outbreak.
Gotcha. Community level. So, I mean, the questions that we have, I mean, there are like a million questions that I don't know that will ever get answered, but one of them, of course, in this case is, did they share a cup of water? Did she give him a sip of her coffee? Did they share the same plate of food, which a lot of couples do when they go out to eat? And, oh, well, let me have a bite of that. Oh, I'll use my fork. You know, we don't know exactly what they did. Was it kissing? Was it just being in the same room? Was it being sleeping, facing each other at night that they were a few inches away? We'll never know. That answer will never come to us.
You're absolutely right.
Because you don't know when it jumped.
You're absolutely right.
This is really frustrating
but we do believe,
for a lot of people.
Right. We do believe that this is a type of disease that is passed along by aerosolized droplets.
Right.
It could be fluids. It could be possibly just floating around in the air like the flu does. So that's a possibility. I just want to say one thing about the World Health Organization. Yeah. Usually the World Health Organization drags its heels a lot with these things and refuses to actually declare an epidemic as a global emergency. But they have indeed today, for the first time, officially declared the new coronavirus, which is known as 2019 nCoV, a global health emergency. And what that means is that now many more resources are going to be marshaled in an effort to fight the spread of this epidemic.
Which is exactly what he said when he was making the announcement. We heard most of it, that he's not doing this because he feels that this is going to cover the globe and kill millions of people. He's doing this because initiating this level allows money and funds to go to the countries, unlike the United States that has a lot of money, and other countries that are well funded. It allows the poorer countries who are at risk, at big risk for being, incubation areas for making this worse, which we'll talk about later, allow them to keep control. Even if they have one patient or two patients, they might not even have a hospital bed with isolation and precautions or even standards to be able to handle it. So there's a lot of places in this world where if it hits and goes a little crazy, that those people just can't handle it. So this is not saying, hey, the whole world's about to get this. We're all going south. You better start digging your graves. What he's saying is, I have to do this to release money for the places that aren't going to be able to handle even a single patient. Right. So there's not a point of panic right now. This was announced for money to help people.
Right. In other words, to get resources, not just money, but basically
masks. Well, if you got to have money to buy, got to have money to buy personnel and fund your hospitals and buy your mask and your gloves and your goggles and the whole 9 yards, and medicines to take care of these people. Not that there's a treatment, but IV solutions and stuff.
Hey, I got an announcement.
Yes, good.
I got an announcement. Alert USA just popped me up. No kidding. U.S. government issues level 4 travel advisory. Do not travel to China.
Right.
Yes. Well, the travel advisories have been popping up. I mean, with even the past 36 hours, British Airways shut down, Lufthansa shut down, Delta said they were limiting, United said they were limiting, and I knew at any moment they were just going to stop. And then people were saying, please just don't travel between China. Either stay there or stay here, but let's not, be putting people on airplanes. This is a problem.
Yep.
All right, well, let's go ahead and talk about other pandemics. We've had
wanna go to the
pandemics
next
in the past.
slide?
Go to the next slide. We'll go very quickly. I just want to talk about a couple of the different terrible pandemics that we've had in the past. One was called the Antonine Plague. It was named for the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius Antoninus. And that was an outbreak that occurred in 165 AD. 5 million people died. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman Emperor himself, was thought to be one of the victims. The next one was the Plague of Justinian in the year 541. The Eastern Roman Empire, or what was left of it, had a pestilence that occurred, and that apparently killed about 25 million people in Europe and Asia, and mostly near the Constantinople area. And so the emperor survived the disease, but he did get it. Next one. The Middle Ages obviously racked with waves of pandemics of something called the plague, which was also known as the Black Death.
I'm pretty sure everyone's heard of this in their history books.
That's
or
right.
They've researched.
That's right. 75 to about 150 million deaths that were attributed to it. There were about 450 million people total on the planet, and it killed 75 to 150 million of them. Next slide. By the way, half of those died in a span of only 4 years in the 1300s. Then, of course, you have the Spanish flu in 1918. As World War I was grinding to a close, there was a new strain of influenza, and that killed 50 to 100 million people. It's believed that it actually infected a third of the world's population at the time, which was about 2 billion. It killed about 50 to 100 million people. There are other influenzas as well. Another interesting thing about viruses is that they tend to mutate, and they do it regularly. Take the flu. You can see in this particular slide that the flu virus can change. There are a number of different strains.
Change it.
Oh, okay. Go to the next slide.
The list. There we go.
All right. And so viruses tend to mutate. There are a lot of different viruses. They mutate regularly, and the flu is one classic form of that. It changes a little bit usually just from year to year, and we call that something called antigenic drift, and that the genetics of it aren't really too much different from one year to another. When one year's virus is very similar to the next year's virus, vaccines, which use material from last year's virus, tend to be more effective.
Right.
In situations where the virus mutates a lot, forming an entirely new strain, well, that's called antigenic shift. And so what's happening is it's shifting to another type of virus altogether, another strain altogether, and that's the kind that kills people, sometimes a lot of people, and not just the elderly and infirm. It kills perfectly healthy, athletic individuals, and that is a big issue. We don't have immunity to it because we haven't been exposed to that particular strain. Now, there are a few strains of the most common type. The most common type of flu virus that causes influenza epidemics is influenza type A. Now, they have subtypes, and these subtypes are based on the properties of some proteins that are on the surface called hemagglutinins and neuraminidase. It's hard to pronounce it, but that's the H and the N that you always hear about. That the Spanish flu was an H1N1, swine flu was an H1N1, and the Asian flu, the Hong Kong flu rather, was H2N2, and H3N2. No, Hong Kong flu was 1968. That was H3N2, and there was an Asian flu that was H2N2. So in any case, there are 18 different kinds of H's. 11 kinds of N's, can be just about anything.
Combination.
Yeah, you absolutely. Go to the next slide. Now, a pandemic isn't a pandemic unless it spreads. And so how do pandemics spread? Now, ingestion is one way. You can eat an animal, for example, that's infected.
Ebola is an example there.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It was a common cause for the virus to spread to humans. Bats and monkeys are a part of the diet of a lot of people in West Africa.
And not well cooked.
And
was the problem.
And they were being cooked over 55-gallon drums,
right.
You know, and they weren't cooked all the way through. And so
I don't think I would be eating a rare bat, but apparently they really liked it.
Well, poultry, I'll tell you, bats and monkeys are definitely part of the problem. You know, if you're eating that kind of stuff, you know that they have viruses, a simian virus, also, and interesting enough, coronavirus is most often found in bats. That's their natural reservoir, and it also is natural reservoir for Ebola. Poultry, of course, the reason that people got the bird flu, and so.
Do you remember how many birds they killed?
Oh, they killed millions of ducks and chickens
and ducks
and geese.
Oh, everywhere.
Now, the thing is with this coronavirus is the reason why I'm talking about animal reservoirs of viruses is because this coronavirus that just came out, the 2019 nCoV, was first identified coming out of live markets that they have in China. Apparently, they have a lot of markets where the animals that are caught are there alive, and you pick one out and they kill it for you and you take it home and you eat it. And then apparently, well, there has been a middleman perhaps somewhere along the way that has allowed a bat to infect an animal that indeed was being eaten by people in China. I don't know if they eat bats in China, but I'm sure they eat other kinds of critters that maybe you and I don't eat on a regular basis. Inhalation, that's the most common and most dangerous, I think, way that a virus will kill you and cause multiple deaths. It's spread through the air or by breathing in droplets from people that are infected, like blood spatter, phlegm, saliva. Somebody sneezes on you or coughs on you, that, you know, those bodily fluids, if you wind up getting them in your nasal passages, you wind up getting them in your eyes or your mouth. Or,
I want to just emphasize your eyes for a second.
Okay.
I don't think that people really think about their eyes as a way to get infected. Most people think about, let's say you hear someone coughing. What do you immediately want to do? Cover your nose and your mouth. The problem, folks, is that those droplets, if it is an airborne infectious disease, can go right into your eye. And I know you're going to talk about that later, but let's not forget that this is a place to get an infection.
Let me just tell you how that happens. Why is the eye a big issue? Because first off, people who wear masks oftentimes don't wear eye protection. If you don't wear eye protection, well, I could sneeze on you and a little droplet can go onto your eye. What happens is the eye, the viral particles that are in your eye or on your eye right now wind up going down into the tear ducts. And guess where the tear ducts connect to? The nasal airways. They go to the nasal airways, maybe the sinuses, and into your oral cavity, and you are now a host for a virus.
Yep.
So that is a pretty big issue. Next slide.
We'll show this later, but don't forget these, folks.
I didn't mention
safety goggles, anything.
The last slide.
Get yourself covered.
I just want to say the last slide indicated injection as a source. Of course, needle sticks can transfer viruses. Hepatitis is one.
Direct.
And of course, HIV is another. Let's see, there are other ways that you can get viruses. They can be absorbed. If you touch secretions from somebody that's infectious and then touch your mouth and again your eyes or an open sore on your skin, well, you know what? You would be pretty surprised at how often that happens. And that's why masks and goggles or face shields are recommended by a lot of people. If viral particles get in your eye and or in your mouth because you were touching secretions, and you don't have to touch a person's secretions. You can touch a counter
or touch something.
Right, a work counter or my shirt.
End up touching something.
Right, somebody sneezes on my shirt.
I bite my nail. Right.
There you go.
Right.
Other ways, sexually, there are diseases that are sexually passed, herpes, pregnancy,
HPV,
or Zika virus, and of course, complacency is maybe a big part of it too. If in terms of spreading pandemics, if you don't pay attention to infection control, it's probably the biggest reason for the spread of pandemic disease. Well, normally a talk about viral epidemics during flu season will concentrate on what? The flu, right? Well, this year, the virus that has us concerned is indeed a member of an entirely different family. I've mentioned already, coronavirus. That is a family of viruses called coronaviridae, and they have they're called that because they have little projections, as you can see on the slide, that look like maybe the tips of a crown, if you're very imaginative, or the corona of the sun. Now, the interesting thing about coronaviruses is that their genetic material is not DNA, but RNA. They are RNA viruses, what we call them. And the thing with RNA viruses is that they generally have very, very high mutation rates compared to DNA viruses, which leaves the possibility of genetic mistakes more frequent. What do I mean by that? When I say mistakes, I mean an imperfect copy of the RNA genetic material is made as the virus is reproducing. It makes a lot of mistakes as it reproduces in the host cell.
Well, let me just give a quick example. If we all remember the cloning experiments when they were trying to create Dolly,
the sheep,
it didn't last. A lot of them had terrible, terrible problems. They just weren't perfect copies until they finally got Dolly. And this is what happens with the viruses. It's copying and copying and copying and copying. And maybe the copy goes a little haywire here or a little haywire there. And the problem with that is sometimes it makes the virus not be so perfect, but if it turns just a little bit and makes a copy that is a little bit better, because it can survive a little longer in the human, it can replicate a little faster, maybe it transfers a little better airborne. These are all things that it doesn't think about because obviously it has no brain. It's just random. It's random mutations in every person that gets this virus. Any virus really could be patient zero. And I'm sure you're going to talk about that later.
Right, for a new improved virus.
For a new improved virus, because there are 100,000 or million replications. One of those was just a little bit different than all the rest of them. And now it's stronger and better. And maybe the 7,000 or 8,000 people that have it right now, it hasn't changed to be able to be stronger and better. And that's wonderful. And we pray and we hope that it doesn't mutate to become stronger and better. But each one of those people is a little petri dish of little replications just waiting to find the right way, because everything on life on earth has a motivation to live and survive. Everything. And that's what this is doing. It's trying to figure out how to survive and live more and better and take over. And these things have been around for millions of years. This one's new from December, but that doesn't mean right now it's going to be the same thing as December. They're doing a lot of testing now. They're doing sequencing. The CDC in Atlanta has the whole sequencing of this gene, and they're checking patients that have had it before and seeing what's changing in each patient. It takes a while to do this, but they're going to be looking at this.
Now, coronaviruses have been around for a long time, as you say,
but this particular one.
Just to prove my point about how frequently that they mutate, well, just since the year 2000, we've had 2 coronaviruses that have caused epidemics that had significant death rates. One was SARS, which is sudden acute respiratory syndrome. It occurred in Asia, and SARS basically is a coronavirus, and it acts like a coronavirus. It killed about 10% of the people that got it. There were about 8,000 cases in 6 months. That was that outbreak. Then there was an outbreak in the Middle East called Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, or MERS. Well, that occurred in the Middle East, but they had a lot of deaths from that. Probably 35, 45% of people that got that virus, and thousands of people got that virus too, wound up dying. So it was more lethal. So there are changes in these viruses that are occurring just in the last few years and making these new viruses or new strains of viruses that we didn't know of before.
And today, and all the people who have the active virus, each person is replicating this virus until the human's immune system can overcome it. And if the human who has it can't overcome it, that's when we have the problem. But most of our immune systems are pretty good. I think this is mostly hitting, as always, the older, the immune compromised, and the young. You know, so if you have a disease that causes you to have problems with immunity, or you're just older, as we get older, we don't fight things as long or
Right.
as easily. Our colds last longer, our flus are a little bad.
Right. You may develop pneumonia
Even
as
if
a result of
if
having
you break
the
a
flu.
leg, it takes longer to heal. You break a hip. This is why people die from hip fractures. But if you had a hip fracture when you were 20, you probably wouldn't die from it. So, you know, we just have problems fighting it. But as humans, we do have a really good immune system. So folks, and we'll probably talk about this later, but think about things that make your immune system better, because we're right now, personally, the only thing that can fight this, if you get it, your body, how you are, your health system, what you're eating, what you're drinking, what you're doing, your stress level, all of these things, your diseases, maybe you're not taking the right medicine, you're not exercising enough, you drink high fructose corn syrup. I mean, there's a million things that have problems with your immunity. So get everything under control. If for some reason this does mutate enough to really go out and spread, the people who have the immune system are the ones that are going to still be here. And hopefully it won't happen, but we're trying to give you, you know, some tools to, you know, hopefully survive if something on the worst case happens.
Now, I just want to say something about the current coronavirus that has caused an epidemic. Basically, about 8,200 people that have actually wound up getting sick. That only about 2% of the people who are in that have this particular coronavirus only die. So that's 2%, 2% death rate. That's very, very small, similar to the mortality though from the Spanish flu. That's much less than, let's say, SARS or MERS. The SARS virus was only 10% death rate. So the death rate is one thing, but the question is how contagious is the new coronavirus? Now you got to figure out why this thing is contagious and how contagious it is. How many people are going to get sick as a result of being exposed to a sick person? Go to the next slide. So to determine this, we have to look at something called the reproduction number, or shorthanded as R0. Basically, the 0 is where a comma would be if you see it represented in chemistry. And it represents a number of people that a sick person would infect if that person was placed in a population that was completely free of the disease. Now, if that number is just 1 or less, only one person winds up getting sick as or less gets sick as a result of exposure to that person, the chance for an epidemic is going to be low. The higher the number is, however, the more likely that infection is going to go out of control. The R0 number for an infectious disease, well, you know what, we have a lot of different opinions as to what the R0 number is, based, if you go from virologist to virologist, you go from textbook to textbook. But if you take a look at this slide here, you can see that Ebola was not as contagious as a lot of other diseases. SARS, which is the only coronavirus I think that I see in this group, was more infective or more contagious than Ebola was. But it wasn't as contagious as if you, let's say if you go all the way to the right, as measles. Basically, with SARS, every infected person that was in an area where nobody had been exposed to it before infected 2 to 5 people, maybe 3 to 5 people. And as a result, it became an epidemic. Right. Measles is so contagious that every person that has measles infects an average of 12 to 18 other people. That's how contagious it is. Incredible. Your chances, if you were exposed to somebody with measles, your chances of getting the measles, if you didn't have it before, was like 90%. It was like something ridiculous. So this R0 number is, the interesting thing about this is I want you to notice that diseases that have high death rates aren't always the most contagious. As you can see, Ebola is not so contagious, but it was pretty darn fatal, 45% fatalities, compared to, well, let's say Zika virus there in the middle, more contagious than Ebola was, but very, very few
Right,
deaths.
because we've got how contagious is it and how lethal is it?
Exactly. So there's a death rate or mortality rate or fatality rate, and then there's the infectivity of a particular,
Right.
how contagious.
Two
it is.
different things.
That's right. Next slide.
What the bad thing is when you get a high infectivity rate and a high death rate.
Right.
That's the scary part.
So now you know a little bit more about the coronavirus epidemic, but how would you recognize a victim of the coronavirus? There is not a test that, well, actually, you know what? There is a test. The CDC has a test for the coronavirus,
CDC has a test.
but it's not
in
readily,
Atlanta.
It's not readily available.
Right.
If you have to go to the CDC in Atlanta to actually get it
Right.
done, or you actually have to. I have instructions here from the Florida Department of Health
Florida Department of Health
as to what to actually do. I actually have to fill out a form
right.
to identify somebody as a person under investigation for this problem. And basically you have to have be somebody that's from Wuhan or that visited Wuhan,
Right.
or
history of travel from Wuhan City,
or somebody that
or Hubei province
is connected to them in some way, some contact, usually a
Did I
spouse
say
or a
that
family
right?
member.
Hubei? Is it Hubei or Hubei?
Hubei, I think.
Hubei.
I
I
don't know.
I can't
don't
pronounce
speak Chinese.
Mandarin Chinese.
It just sounds like Chinese.
Hubei.
All right. Well, anyhow, so that is basically what I have to do to get a
state of Florida.
A coronavirus
this came out today
test.
at 2:00.
Yes, that's right.
Right here, an alert to us.
Well, so you can see that from the slide, you can see that people get fever, they get chills, they get headaches and sore throats, cough. I mean, problem is that sort of looks a lot like a cold. Or maybe the flu. And the funny thing is that most people that wind up with this new coronavirus actually wind up, well, they get sick, and the symptoms are usually relatively mild, and they're usually better in a week or so. The funny thing is that when you look at the statistics, they're only willing to say that out of the 8,000 people, only 200 have recovered. So I think they're still watching people and just wondering how long, these people are going to be
Remember
contagious.
how long Zika stayed in the blood system and in the eye fluid?
Right. So yeah, right.
Years.
Right, exactly.
Years this virus stayed in their bodies.
So that's sort of interesting that they say there's only 200 people have recovered from a viral disease that has so far infected 8,200.
Right.
But in any case, the problem with this is that 1 in 5 coronavirus victims becomes very ill. And instead of a cold, in which very few people wind up becoming very ill, or even the flu, in which most people recover relatively easily unless they're elderly or infirm or immune suppressed. Well, 1 in 5 people that gets the coronavirus, this new strain, winds up having difficulty breathing, they're short of breath, they get pneumonia, and their organs fail, kidneys especially fail, and in a small percentage, these people die. And in any case, even if they don't die, what they're doing is they're taxing the medical system to the point that it's strained and it cannot handle more and more sick people. So we have to see how many more people wind up getting infected and what it does to China's medical infrastructure. Right now, as I understand it, Wuhan, which is a city of 11 million, is essentially a ghost town. And that's another thing, because since you can get it, and since you can be contagious
without knowing you have the virus,
before you have symptoms,
you think you're perfectly healthy. I have no symptoms. I'm fine. I'm going to go to the grocery store. I'm going to go out to the park. I'm going to go, to a mall or something, or a market, which is what they have. They don't even know. They're giving it to other people. They don't even know what's going to happen in a couple of weeks because these people have all been exposed.
Right. There's an incubation period, and that's the time between when the virus gets into your body and you wind up having the symptoms. And that they're not even sure what that is exactly. They say
I
anywhere from
wish we
1
had
to 14 days.
more definitive numbers.
We just don't know.
It's a
too new
shame that
virus.
this is coming out of China, because China is not terribly forthcoming with all of their numbers, and all we can provide you guys is with what is public. What the truth is that's happening on the ground. I'm sure most people here who are interested in the subject, and that's why you're listening to us, have seen YouTube videos. I saw a YouTube video of a nurse in, full pandemic gear with, the whole biohazard suit on, talking through it, saying that she believes that we're 90,000 people who are sick. Now, she didn't tell us how many had died, but she said, I think 90,000 people are sick. Well, that's kind of a huge difference from the 8,000 that we're hearing right now, which is weird because that number hasn't seemed to increase over kind of the past 24 hours. It's sort of like flattened out. So it makes
I
me
think there's just
question
problems with reporting
what the
there.
reality is. And also, I know we were testing over 100 people 2 days ago, and I still don't hear more numbers
in the U.S. Well,
yeah,
I heard some numbers there. It's now more than, it's not 200 yet, but it's more than 100.
okay.
And I think 68 have turned out negative. And
Okay,
they
well, that's
still
a
have
good thing.
Quite a few that are still in the process.
They're still
of
pending.
trying to figure that out.
So I really wish that we could say it's exactly this incubation period, and it's exactly this R naught number, like we know these other diseases. It's just so new, it's so emerging, and it's coming out of a country that has lied to us before. You want to trust them, you want to say, yes, they're providing us all, but are they taking death certificates and writing flu or pneumonia and not writing NCOV as the death reason? So we're not sure. And they didn't allow people in from, I believe it was the CDC for a while. Now they've suddenly opened up their arms and said, yes, come in and help us. Hopefully some people who are going to be taking a look at things are going to sniff around a little more if China allows it, and get into medical records and say, hey, you wrote down pneumonia, but what did this person actually culture out for? Did you test them for coronavirus? Where's the test results? And I see 10,000 people that were not tested for coronavirus. We don't know. We don't know. This is so early. We're giving you what we can. And again, like an interesting thing is the people who do end up with it don't seem to be as sick as what you would expect of someone who gets
80% of them aren't. They don't have really bad disease.
Not,
but one in five do. And what
right.
I'm saying, that's why I'm saying it's really stretching that medical infrastructure, and it could even affect just the reporting of these things. So of these cases. So you may wind up seeing not much difference in the numbers, and then you can see a spike perhaps.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that something happened that made it spike,
right.
but it's just that they're not up with their numbers. They're also behind us in terms of dealing with infection control. I mean, they do have, because they're an authoritarian government, they have the ability to close down a city, which I bet if you tried to close down New York City, it probably would be sort of difficult. But they were able to do it. But a lot of people got wind of that, and it said that before the city went into quarantine, Wuhan, China, 5 million people managed to leave the area.
Someone's now telling us that their current information is 9,692. Well, the last heat wave, what's the name of that website that shows all of the things? Was about 8,000.
80 was 8236. And that was at 11. That was at 11 a.m.
That's the last time it had updated. We can only get the numbers as they're updated. So
how many deaths does it say?
So if they just did an update, then you're getting it, and we're doing the webinar.
Deaths? Do we know deaths?
It's not. He didn't say. Interesting.
I see someone says 171.
Okay, that hasn't changed.
That hasn't changed.
That hasn't changed. So it sounds like
more people got sick.
You're seeing something that's highly contagious, and hopefully not going to be very high.
Other places, there are places that say 213 though.
So. Okay, interesting. So that's the problem, is we have trouble. And also China only has one laboratory that is what's called a biosafety 4 lab, level lab, and that can handle this kind of contagious kind of infectious disease. And the funny thing is that it's in Wuhan, China. And so it's been postulated by some that there may have been some kind of lab accident that may have caused it. I think that probably it's more likely that indeed it was an RNA virus from a live market more than this other theory. But, you know, the country of China still has a long way to go to get to where we are with regards to being able to deal with different kinds of infections. Go to the next slide. The next slide, well, pretty simple. Should you panic? Right? Isn't that the big question? Should you panic? The answer is
Hopefully
no.
not.
Do not panic. This is something that is not a big issue. Right? It is a big issue, but it is not as bad as it could be. Right now, the coronavirus epidemic is about 99% in the country of China. And there are no community-wide outbreaks that have occurred outside the borders of China. That's good news, at least for now, because, well, no traveler from China to the US has proven yet to be patient zero in a community-wide outbreak elsewhere in another country, like the United States, for example. Now, it's always possible that an outbreak can occur. And if that occurs, well, then we can call this an actual pandemic. Now, in the interesting thing about these kinds of outbreaks is that in the United States, when a community has a crisis, there are nearby communities, municipalities.
Okay, wait, hold on. I just want to show this. This is exactly what that tracker says.
All right.
So I'm not sure where you guys are getting the other numbers.
Put it closer.
But please send the link to me, because this is the Johns Hopkins University tracker, and they're getting information.
Now that hasn't been, that's exactly the same.
Sources.
That's exactly the same as at 11 a.m.
I don't know if they can see that. It's kind of blurry.
So somewhere.
Yeah, they're saying that the Johns Hopkins, which puts that on, is behind.
Yes.
And news has.
I believe it. I believe it.
And I believe
it hasn't been updated since 11 a.m.
I totally believe it. So anyhow, no need to panic because we don't have community-wide outbreaks as of yet in other countries. I mean, not even in Mongolia or Tibet or outer provinces of China itself. It's mostly a central China thing. It has gone to the coast, but if you look at the map, you know, there are definite areas in which are the hotbeds where this is happening, and it's all in that one country. Now, it's unclear, you know, how bad this outbreak has to get to go outside of China's borders in terms of community-wide outbreaks, but there are a lot of simple preventative measures that you guys can do out there that are going to be worth a lot more than a pound of cure. Prevention, an ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure. Well, there is no cure for this, so therefore you have to work with what you got, and that's going to be prevention. So since there's not a medicine that you can take that would cure it or even speed up the process of making you better, you need to use what we call non-pharmaceutical interventions. Right. And this includes some, change the next slide. I'm sorry, go to the next slide. Some of these are changes that really occur to change your actual lifestyle in the midst of an epidemic. You can imagine that if your town was with hundreds of people that were sick with a particular infectious disease, you might have a little worry about going to work. You may not want to go to work if a lot of people are sick there. You may stay away from large crowds. That's what we call social distancing. You may want to keep your kids home from school. A lot of kids are sick there. And in your own family, you may want to isolate the sick people from the healthy ones, at least as much as possible. Now, the thing about that, and why that's so hard to do, is because how about if you have to take the bus or you have to take the subway to work, and
or go to a hospital to get dialysis?
Yeah,
I mean, there are reasons why you need to go into groups of people,
and you don't have, or you don't have the financial wherewithal to simply not go to work.
Exactly.
So you wind up people going to work so they
Bills
can get a
still come
paycheck,
in.
and they can get sick and could actually kill them.
Right.
So these are some of the obstacles to being able to really do the kind of social distancing that makes a difference. But if you can try your best to avoid close contact with possibly sick individuals, well, that's very important. And the important thing also is to have maybe some personal protection gear. Now, I want to talk about what close contact is. There's actually a definition of it. The CDC defines close contact as being within 6 feet, 2 meters, of somebody who's infected with coronavirus or in a closed room for a period of time with someone who has been infected with the coronavirus. And another, even a more dangerous situation would be direct contact, an unprotected person having direct contact with an infectious patient. Well, that person would qualify also. And when I say direct contact, that person has been sneezed on, that person, let's say somebody with coronavirus vomited and went on your shoes. This is the kind of stuff that actually people don't really think about. You know, somebody sneezing on you that actually hits your sleeve. They think about, indeed, when they cough, you know, covering themselves with their sleeve, but they don't realize that there are a lot of different ways that you can wind up getting sick. Now, the best policy, therefore, is going to be to wash your hands very frequently and carry hand sanitizer whenever you touch surfaces. You want to get some hand sanitizer, disinfection, and disinfect that surface in some way. So close attention is especially needed when you focus on eyes, nose, and mouth. You want to try to prevent touching those if you can. The problem is that, you know, a lot of people will, no matter what, wind up touching their face or touching their eyes or putting their hand near their mouth. You know, if you look at the average person for about a half hour, I bet you see that person do exactly that at least several times, and that person gets sick just by doing it once. So go to the next slide. Basically, hand washing, frequent hand washing, very, very important. Hand sanitizer. Now, what should you use? What's better, soap and water or hand sanitizer? Well, the CDC says, or they have, and the World Health Organization agrees, that you should wash your hands with soap and running water whenever your hands are visibly dirty. So any dirt that you see on your hands is a reason to not use hand sanitizer, but to use soap and water. If your hands are not visibly dirty, you might consider using hand sanitizer, or you can use soap and water. Now, the problem with hand sanitizer is that people don't use enough. You actually have to use enough hand sanitizer to get your entire surface of both, and your desk and your wife, you know, covered with the alcohol.
Stinky hand sanitizer.
Exactly.
Now look at how wet your hands are. Just show them how wet your hands are.
You got to use a lot of hand sanitizer. So that's what the problem that people have, is that they never use enough hand sanitizer. And that's why they recommend using soap and water instead, in some cases, even when your hands are not visibly dirty. Go to the next slide. Now, you need to be able to protect yourself from others that are sick, and you want to basically, the question, I guess, is when do I have to wash my hands? Because people don't spend their
literally this very second, John Hopkins just updated their website.
All right.
This very second.
Okay. This very second, we now have 9,776 cases. We have 213 deaths, and we have a total recovered of 187. So 187 people are actually thought to have recovered from a disease that has almost 10,000 cases. So it's a very interesting how they are coming to those numbers and how they are considered
recovered.
You know, when are you considered recovered?
And how long is it taking to be considered recovered?
I know.
3, 4 weeks?
Obviously,
6 weeks, 8 weeks?
It's taking quite a long
12?
time.
I mean, they think there was
this virus
first I heard December, Then I read maybe November, and then they said even possibly earlier. They just didn't know to check for this.
Of course.
We don't know how long this has actually been going around.
So to protect
Tonight-
yourself and others from getting,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Tonight I watched CBS News, and they said that they still don't know how long an infected person can carry it even after they're doing better.
Yes. Well,
Right. That's what happened
that's
with
probably why they're
with
not.
Ebola.
That's probably why they're not willing to say that these people are recovered.
People with Ebola were transmitting after they were healthy through sexual contact.
Yeah,
And even
for 6 months or more.
You know, I mean, people were saying if you were trying to have a baby, don't have a baby for many, many, many months. Even after you feel better, you feel well, this was still able to be transmitted. I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of unknowns.
So when should you wash your hands? Pretty darn often, I'd say, after coughing or sneezing, whenever you are a caregiver, before and after you deal with a patient that is sick. Before, during, and after you prepare food, very important. You can contaminate food very easily, and anyhow, you're going to be have countertops and stuff you may be working on before eating, after using the toilet, when your hands, of course, are visibly dirty if you're working in the garden, and after handling animals or animal waste. So some of the coronaviruses actually can affect dogs and some other animals. So indeed, you better wash your hands an awful lot. Next. Now, I don't want to say that you guys aren't very hygienic. I think you are, but do you know your respiratory hygiene? There's respiratory hygiene that's different from regular hygiene. And here's one of them is to have a supply of these around. People use, yes.
True.
Right.
And then wait, ready? Grab the outside.
Safely dispose
and
of
drop it in the garbage. There you go. Don't put it in your pocket and use it over and over.
Right. Handkerchiefs, in other words, are not what
Probably
you're going to
not a good thing.
want to use.
Right.
So you need to know what to do to prevent others from getting sick. When you're coughing or sneezing, cover your mouth or nose with that tissue that she just threw away.
I disposed of
it. There was a new tissue.
I disposed of it properly.
You did. You indeed. You did. You did. You really did. Or if you don't have a tissue, don't sneeze into your hands because you're going to be touching your face with it. So just go into your flex elbow and onto your sleeve, anywhere but the surfaces of your hands. So the tissue, what Amy did, she threw the tissue into a garbage can. Now the thing, the thing is,
hand sanitizer.
Better than that would be a garbage bin that has a top,
lid.
Yeah, there's a lid. And that you should do immediately after use. And of course, you should clean your hands on a regular basis anytime after you cough or sneeze. And of course, when caring for the sick. All right, let's go to the next slide. Oh, okay, medical masks. Okay, well, I thought we'd never ask. Medical masks, huge demand for them now with our, here you see one box of some of our.
These are some of the terms that are on these boxes.
Right. And the good thing about all of these various types of masks, oh, you want that back? Okay.
I do.
All right, I'm sorry. Is that these masks are evaluated by laboratories and they have an ability to serve as a barrier to very small particles that might contain bacteria or viruses, right? As well, masks are also tested for their ability to fit tightly to, can they see me?
Now, let me do this because you're going to be talking while you're doing it.
They can see me, okay. All right, so basically, these 10 masks are tested for their ability to tightly fit onto the average human face. And the most common ones that you'll see are just regular old surgical masks. And they look like this. Before you show that, we'll show you. I'm
already doing it.
I'm going to show you how to put that on.
I'm already doing it.
All right, well, I want to explain that.
Okay.
But first, this is your typical surgical mask. Okay, how do you feel?
It feels really nice and snug.
All right. Basically, what you're going to do with this is it has ear loops, and so you put it on your face like so, and then you stretch it and you try to make it fit. Now,
Right. That's
what
what we're
you do
doing
is-
right here.
what you do
We're
is
molding.
with both hands at the same time, you mold it to the way your face is. Then you want to do a fit test. The fit test basically means that you are going to, without pressing on the mask, you're going to feel for air that's escaping. When you breathe in, oftentimes the mask will indent a little bit if there's a good seal. And when you breathe out, you won't feel air coming out from the sides.
Nope.
When you
No
remove
air.
when you remove a mask, you will want to grab it by the ear loops in this case. Remove it and do not touch the front of the mask. The front
Hold
of the
on.
mask.
I'm doing this one.
Okay.
And then
All right.
Wait, put them back on.
drop.
Yes. Yes, we're merciless.
Drop yours in.
You have to see us. Okay, but wait.
Never, ever touch the
Well,
front.
The one thing I want to say is that how many TV shows have you seen where
They sit,
where the doctor comes from the operating room or
like this.
comes from the ER and he's like that,
It's like hanging here.
or he's got it hanging, their ties here,
Right,
there.
yeah.
This is contaminated.
It's disgusting.
And so you should never, ever have the front of your mask touching the rest
When
of
you're
you.
done with it, this is garbage. Finished garbage.
All right.
Drop it in like that.
Hey, I do have one question. If we can, if you will take one real quick.
Sure.
How long are you supposed to do your hands? Just get them
20
really
seconds.
wet.
20 seconds. Happy birthday to you. Happy
Okay.
birthday to you.
Okay.
Happy birthday, dear Forrest. Happy birthday to you. And then sing it again one more time. And there you have how the length of time that you should be washing your hands.
Gotcha.
Now we have two different masks here. We have just a regular surgical mask, but let's talk a little bit about the N95 respirator mask. An N95 respirator mask that Amy had on basically are a class of disposable respirators that have at least 95% protection against what? Particulates that are greater than 0.3 microns. Now I want to show you what that is. Can they see this for us?
Yes.
Can you see that this is looks like a circle, right?
Yep.
Now we're going to pretend that this is a human hair that I just cut in cross section. You're looking at the cross section of a human hair.
Are you still there?
Do you see it? Oh, did I lose him?
Yeah, you're there. I got you.
Oh, okay.
It was
All
a
right,
pause.
so you see that little dot there? That's a micron. And so the N95 mask is protective against about 95%. That's why they call it 95 percent of particulates that are larger than 0.3 microns in size. Now that means they're not 100%. That's why they're called N95s. The N actually means non-oil resistant. There are oil resistant and there's oil proof masks also. These are used usually in industrial workplaces and maybe agricultural situations, but you don't need that. But you do need an N95s to have a good amount of protection. Now, the interesting thing is that the coronavirus is smaller than 0.3 microns. So you would think that this mask would not actually be protective, but they actually did studies in Saudi Arabia with a related virus called MERS, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. We talked about that earlier. And they found that people that wore N95 masks, although the virus itself was smaller than what they say that these protect from, actually had a great deal more protection than people that use either just standard surgical masks or no masks at all when they were exposed to people with the infection. So indeed, it's still a pretty decent thing to have. So you should have a decent amount of them. There are N99 masks that are 99% effective against 0.3 microns or greater. And there's N100, which are 99.7%, not quite 100%. These are also available. They're a lot more expensive. So the N95s are probably more bang for the buck. You get decent protection with, and you're able to probably afford a number of them. Well, the thing with this is that none of these masks cover the eyes. So you need either a face shield or a goggle. Here's goggle.
I have the face shield.
You have a face shield? Okay, well, with a goggle, what you do is you're going to hold the front of it, and then place it on your face. Simply put, just like this. Make sure you have a nice seal, and she has a face shield, and this goes over. By the way, this is going over your mask, so this is not
You can switch to us. I think he switched to us.
This is not instead of a mask. This is in addition to a mask,
Right.
Preferably an N95.
You put your mask on first.
So basically, mask goes on first. These go on later. These go off first. Okay, but you're not touching the front. You're taking them off like this. And the mask goes off later. Okay, she's showing us out. So here she has pretty decent protection against viral particles. And when she, what do you got here? Oh,
I was gonna even show that even more protection.
There are even hoods that you can put on, but what you would do is you would put on the hood and then put on the face shield. Otherwise, it steams up on you. So you definitely don't want to do that. Now, let's show them the coveralls. There are a number of different coveralls. Are you okay?
Yeah, it's not easy to breathe through these N95s.
Well, you get some protection. The fabric is called melt blown fabric, and so as a result, it does give you quite a. Actually, you're supposed to do this. You hold it like this.
I did. I showed them
Okay,
that.
you show them how to do it. Okay.
But you can do it again if you'd like.
All right. So basically,
We have a video on this. It's very detailed.
Right. If you go to our, let's just have them go to our video. The video is called Face Mask.
I did mine while you were doing the ear loop, so we did the demonstration at the same.
Okay.
So I don't want to bore them with putting on these masks over and over.
Now, coveralls are used in situations where there are very significant dangers, just from splatter or dealing with people who are sick with a very contagious disease. Ebola, for example, you needed to have these kinds of materials, and you'll see a lot of the Chinese medical workers are using these kinds of materials. This particular coverall happens to have a hood, so you don't necessarily have to have a separate hood that you would use for it. Now, the interesting thing about these is that when I wrote about Ebola, basically, we would, once you had put this on, then you put your gloves on.
Well, you had one glove on already, and then you put the second.
I would put a first glove on.
Go ahead.
And then this, let's say this was my second glove.
Nope, that's your first. Now we have a second glove, which is actually interesting because they're now having extended cuffs. So the second glove goes
much
on,
longer
which
wrists
is nice. Put your
than
hand in
most
there.
gloves. So I'm putting my hand in here, and I got to get my fingers in. There you go.
Okay. And now these are actually able to go up over the cuffs, which is really nice. See how long that is?
Now, the way you can tell that you have a good fit from your coverall
I'm holding it.
is by raising your hand over your head. If you stretch and you're still covered, your sleeve is still covered,
Right here.
your wrist is still covered, then you are safe. You have put that on correctly.
Right.
So that's it. In the old days, they used to allow you to use duct tape to wrap here to form a seal. Now, what instead they want you to do is they want you to, I'm gonna have to show you how to do this.
With the first glove.
Okay. You have one glove on, then what you do is you
Hold
put
your hand up a little higher.
You put your hand, but still right there. Right, you're still in the coverall with your thumb. Do you see that?
That's just holding it down.
Right.
And then you put your second glove.
And then you put your second glove on over that.
Or you can also put a hole in it.
Or
Which
you
I
could-
don't want to put a hole in my cover. Thank you.
Okay,
But
you
if
can
you put a thumb hole, it will actually hold this in place. And then you can put the second longer glove that covers the cuff up so that your wrist is protected. You want to cover as much of your body as possible. This has a hood, and when you zip this up, this is actually elastic, and this will sit up underneath your chin. So you've got your goggles and your face mask on, And then you have very little amount of skin that is exposed at that point, which is
Right.
nice.
And a face shield would actually cover you pretty well too. Now, another interesting thing is that these coveralls have booties. However, these booties are not enough protection.
No.
So what you need to have is boots. If you have waders, things like that, this kind of some kind of boot this is a medical boot. This is something that you would use.
Oh, that's actually a good picture.
Okay, there's a
That was
picture.
a picture of the coverage with
Yeah.
the zip, right?
Right.
Go to the next one. Let's keep seeing that.
Yep.
That was putting in the glove, checking, right?
Right. This is a few years old, but you see I had two
Now
sets
this is
of gloves.
starting to take
Okay, wait,
off.
stop there. Biohazard bag. Now, when I remove material, my coveralls and things like that, I have opened up a biohazard bag and I'm standing in it. So as I am removing things, that coverall is coming down, 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 and it ends up in the biohazard bag as I step away from it. You can keep going a little further for us. You see the boots there. Those are my actual boots. And to remove, as you can see, to remove the hood, basically you want to get inside. You don't want to touch what's outside. So you see that I actually went inside and I pulled on it, I everted it, pulled it inside out, and then pulled it back over my head. Do the next slide for us. Pulled it over and pulled it back over my head.
I want you to actually go to us for a second.
Uh-oh. Don't make me put that on. All right, well, there you go.
Just flash to us for a second. So hold on.
Nope,
So
no.
imagine this is zipped. It's just hard to stand up and do this. So I've rolled this back to get it off of my head without touching my head. This is a very complicated situation. I will say that most of the doffing, the taking off should be done with a second person.
Right. Matter of
They
fact,
recommend that actually the second person is in a full suit and they actually remove it for you without touching the inside of any of your contaminated biohazard suit, so that you have somebody who's freshly put on their suit taking off your contaminated suit.
Get me that bucket, please. Another thing that is very useful is to have a bucket that already has maybe a bleach solution, and just so any old bucket from Home Depot or Lowe's will do, and you can actually put your boots there.
There are two things that you can drop
And
in here: the boots
and your goggles.
and the goggles. Those are the two things that you can
Anything
reuse.
you might consider
Nothing
reuse.
else can be reused.
So there you go. Let's go now all the way towards the end, because I want to talk a little bit about a survival sick room. So here you see me going through the process. You see how it goes.
You're doing it by yourself.
And I'm doing it
Hopefully
by
that
myself.
will never happen.
Yeah, right. You don't want to, but sometimes you may have to. And so as you see, everything will end up in a biohazard bag.
And he's not touching the outside of the suit.
All right, keep going. Go ahead. And you see, everything's being touched. Everything I'm touching is on the inside. And whenever you grab a mask, you want to make sure you remove things in such a fashion so you never ever touch the front of the mask. And you see where the mask is going into the biohazard bag. Then you wash your hands, or take a shower if you're in a truly contagious situation. Let's talk about survival sick rooms. For epidemics of contagious disease, there has to be some place where you're going to isolate the sick people from the healthy people. That's a pretty hard reality. You got to do that, but you want to give the sick folks, the best chance to be able to recover while protecting the people that are healthy, right? You don't want to have more people. You can't afford to have more people get infected. So you got to do something. And the first decision that has to be made is whether you're staying in place or whether you're getting out of Dodge. If you're staying in place, then you have to choose a room in the house where the sick people are going to be cared for. You should think about this. I mean, I don't want you to have a sick room today or tomorrow, but you should think about what you would do in this kind of situation. So that room should be separate from common areas, shouldn't be near where people are eating or where most of the traffic is in the house. It should have good ventilation, it should have good light, and preferably a door or some other physical barrier between it and the rest of the retreat. So it should have some kind of way to close it, but still should have good ventilation, good lighting. If the wiser choice is to get out of Dodge, well, you know, shelter is an issue that you may be addressed by having maybe a dedicated tent as the sick room and placing it maybe at the periphery of the camp. And on that situation, again, you want to have a tent that has good ventilation. That's very important. You want to have good air circulation. Now, I want to say this about sick rooms in a retreat or a camp. If you have a mutual assistance group and they're all going to meet at your place, or they're all going to go to this particular area, they're usually going to bring one tent that is their place. Now, for groups where a number of people are living together in a home or in a camp, if you don't designate what the sick tent is before a disaster happens, that puts somebody at risk at losing their home because of the greater good. And that is going to breed a lot of discontent and resentment at a time when everybody needs to pull together. So if you have a sick room in a retreat, if you have it in an area where there's air ducts, like air conditioning, from air conditioning ducts, of course, they may not be working. You may be off the grid. The grid may be down. Well, decent ventilation is great when everybody's healthy, but when somebody's sick, especially with an airborne virus, like influenza or like this coronavirus might be, the air ducts are actually more of a danger than a benefit. And you actually may have microbes that are passing through the air ducts in the sick room to other areas of the house. It could represent a risk of transmission of diseases. So you need to cover with duct tape in that kind of situation, only in that situation. If you're using a room as a hospital room for somebody that broke a leg or something like that, that's different than somebody who has a possibly contagious disease. In your tents, you want to keep those flaps open, especially in bad weather, except in bad weather, excuse me. And basically you want to have screening in case there are a lot of insects, you know, things like that. Now, furnishings in the sick room. Furnishings in the sick room should be very minimal, maybe a work surface, an exam area, a bed space or bed spaces. In mild weather, some of these beds can be outside as long as shade is provided via a canopy or some other means. Hard surfaces, they're preferable to any fabric. And they may not be as comfortable, but they're much more preferable to fabric upholstery. Cloth can cause the accumulation of disease-causing organisms, have all sorts of splatter that you may not be able to notice or may not be able to get out. So even bedding in some circumstances may be best covered in plastic. If I had an Ebola patient, I would be putting plastic on their bed, on their cot. The bottom line is the more areas that you can disinfect easily, the better it is. Now, it's important to have a way to eliminate the waste products. So you need maybe just a 5-gallon bucket and some bleach solution. That might not be bad. Containers with lids should be made available so that you can use sick room items or like a hamper, things that need cleaning. You need a station near the entrance of the sick room or your hospital tent so that you can have caregivers equipment like masks and gloves, gowns, aprons, whatever personal protection gear is necessary for the situation, and make sure you always have a good supply of those items. Maybe a basin with water and soap, other disinfectants, that's useful. You want to, of course, have thermometers as well. That's going to be another very, very useful item. Many people consider medical supplies to consist of like gauze and tourniquets and battle dressings. And of course, that's the interesting stuff that people think about when they're thinking about preparedness. But you also have to have dedicated sets of sheets, towels, pillows that you are going to dedicate to the sick person. You don't want to be using those in somebody that is sick with a contagious disease and then have somebody else wind up using it. You have to keep these items separate from the bedding and bathing and eating materials of the healthy members of your group. So that's something also that's very important that a lot of people don't really think about. Cleaning supplies, also medical preparedness items. We have a lot of, let's say, Clorox wipes and Lysol, and a simple bleach solution, 1 to 10 bleach solution would be good. Don't forget you want to disinfect doorknobs and
Yeah, it doesn't have to be something
entrances.
fancy. I just
Yeah,
want to
no,
say that you don't have to buy very expensive products to actually kill viruses. One important thing though, if you have like mucus or vomit and you pour bleach or some product like that, it may not penetrate deep inside that mucus. So you may still have viral particles inside of there that are still active. So if something is kind of mounted or piled up or, you know, globular mucusy, you may not be able to kill the virus. You need to do like a hazmat thing. You need to get rid of that
I just touched my face.
junk.
Just touched my face.
You
Yeah.
need, you
See
need,
that?
you need with special precautions to clean up that area. And then once you've gotten rid of that mound of whatever it is, then you can clean the surface with the 1 to 10 bleach solution.
Right. Then again, okay, so remember plates, cups, eating utensils, these are also things that should be
Or 10%,
dedicated.
it's 1 to 9.
Dedicated to the sick person. And one additional item that a lot of people don't think about is your sick room patient should have a noisemaker of some sort, a whistle maybe, that'll allow you to alert them, allow them to alert you, hold on, when they need help. This is going to decrease anxiety and give them confidence that you haven't forgotten about them. So I think that's good. I'm sorry.
No, I don't think we actually showed them.
Yeah, this
The
is
red bag.
yeah, this is in our pandemic kit. We have a number of different types of biohazard bags, and this is one big one that would be very useful to stand in to actually get rid of all of
This is
the
a
item you're covering.
33 gallon.
Right.
I got 3 quick questions.
Yes.
3. I'm gonna ask them all 3 at the same time.
All right.
Will HEPA filters help in your air conditioner, in your heating unit, Tamiflu, and thieves oil?
All right. Okay. So
Viral particles are really small.
right. So it's hard to say, but if the HEPA filter says that it will actually filter out these items, then that's something that is okay. I mean, I would be pretty happy with that. I would remind you that masks and things like that, I didn't mention this. I wanted to make sure I mentioned this. Masks do not stop things like gas, like chlorine, things like, you can still be overcome by chlorine or other chemicals if you are wearing these N95s or any of these kinds of masks. For those who need an actual gas
Let's
mask.
also review what you said on your video about this not being appropriate for the virus we have now.
Okay, well, the only reason
This is better.
right. The only reason is because the fit is tighter with that than
Right.
this.
Right. These are a lot, and you're seeing a lot of people with it
The
really
N95
loose.
versus the face surgical one.
They're showing it like not folded. You're seeing it barely on the nose. You're seeing it open on the sides. People just aren't wearing them very well, and they have said that these are almost useless.
Tamiflu, very good for influenza. Now, the thing with Tamiflu that's very important and you should always realize is that Tamiflu is only useful, and not only Tamiflu, but Relenza and this new one-day treatment called Xofluza. These are only useful if taken within the first 48 hours of having symptoms. If you take them after that time, it's probably not going to do you much good at all. It doesn't really affect it. If you take it early, however, it will decrease the length of your illness and probably the severity of your symptoms. So don't forget to, I personally recommend that you ask your doctor for a prescription for one of these medicines before flu season begins in your part of the country. So I think that that's something that's very important. You certainly want to have the ability to have a prescription for one of these antivirals. I think that that's something that's very important.
Right. They just don't know yet. I do want to go back to the filters because we basically have, I don't know, 7 or 8 different filters throughout the house. I have moved a lot of mine from the HEPA filters that I had before, which, by the way, they will filter our viruses. The problem is it'll get clogged up. So you have to replace your filters on a very regular basis. But what I do have are the UV light filters, and those I love. I have them in my air conditioning units, and I have them all around the house. So the UV light filters, I personally think are a wonderful thing. So I have moved to them, so I don't have to constantly replace these filters that are not cheap. That's for sure.
What was your third question?
Well, I'm going to add one to it. One is thieves.
Thieves oil. All
And
right.
elderberry.
If you're going to use thieves oil, I have no problem with it. You know that there's inhalation therapy. You get 2 or 3 drops of thieves oil, for example, and you breathe, and you can breathe it. If you're going to put thieves oil and use it, I would put it maybe a drop or 2 on the inside of your mask.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same exact thing.
Oh, good.
Yep.
And
it cannot hurt,
right,
which is the point.
And a lot of people do believe, it's been thought by many that will have beneficial effect in decreasing the risk of spread.
And elderberry, boost immune system. I think that's one of the first things that I mentioned before we even got into all of these statistics and death rates and whatnot, was that building your immune system is the best thing besides washing your hand and social distancing, keeping yourself away from sick people, is that we are the medicine. How we eat, how we take care of ourselves. And elderberry does help, I believe, your immune system. So I think it's a wonderful thing. Anything we can do that makes our machine work better to fight off everything every single day. We personally have mutations in our cell replications that could potentially become cancer. Every day, there's that potential. We're constantly replicating cells. And if something goes a little haywire, hopefully your immune system sends the troops in, takes care of it, and says, nope, that's not happening today. So if we keep our bodies working really well, hopefully, we stay healthier from any virus that comes, any pandemic, and, anything else that goes on.
Okay, how about colloidal silver?
Colloidal silver is, before there were antibiotics, there was colloidal silver. And for wound care and for prevention of infection, for especially on skin wounds and skin sores and things like that, I think that silver is very useful. The silver is in something called Silvadene, and that's used for bed sores and things like that to prevent infections. Now, colloidal silver, if you just drink colloidal silver as an ion, there is anecdotal evidence that indeed it may decrease the chance for infection. However, the thing with ions is they're like members of the Lonely Hearts Club. They want a partner. And so in the human body, the chloride that we have in sodium chloride, when you have silver ions, winds up connecting with the silver and forming something called silver chloride. And the silver chloride in the human body, as far as we know, is generally inert. In other words, doesn't have much of an effect. So the answer is a lot of hard scientific data for using it on wounds, less so used internally.
Someone had mentioned spraying it on the mask.
Oh, okay, I don't see any reason why you couldn't do that.
I don't see a harm.
Okay. Next question. The N95 mask with goggles, will it stop you from getting the virus? If you don't touch your face, could you literally stop, not get the virus?
We don't know. We don't know.
I would say this, that
for sure.
With Saudi Arabian studies that were done with the Middle East respiratory syndrome, okay, which remember is a cousin of the current virus that's going on, right, epidemic that's raging in China, that it, yes, had a big effect in terms of decreasing the amount of infection that occurred in medical workers.
Right, but what he's saying is completely stop. So we can never say 100%.
Well, you got me there, because 100% is tough to say.
But all of that is better than nothing. So each thing that you do, And the reason you're seeing these people wearing this all over Asia is this is what they have. And these are cheap.
Right.
And they're, they can get them over there for pennies because that's where they're making them. So these people are wearing them because that's what they can afford. And then they can throw them away. If you're sick, and we've talked about this many times, and we have this on our DVD, the pandemic DVD, is the person who's sick should be wearing this, because if they cough or sneeze, it at least is getting caught here. So
those
it's
are
not
big droplets
projecting over into you, Forrest.
Those are big droplets.
Or Joe or the healthcare worker. It's less that's coming out into the air to possibly get you infected. And the healthcare worker or people who are concerned or in close contact with people who are sick are the ones who should be wearing these.
Okay.
This is the safety. Now, if something comes to my community and I have to go to the grocery store, I won't because I'm a prepper. But if I had to go to the grocery store for some reason, I'm putting on a 95. I'm probably putting on, goggles. I'm going to look like a freakazoid going into the grocery store. And I'm probably going to wear a couple of pairs of gloves because I was at the grocery store today. I was buying things that I thought would be kind of fun to have if there was a problem. I bought beef jerky. I bought some chocolate syrup. I bought more tuna fish.
I'll be back.
I bought, some treats for him. But I thought about all the things that I touch because I look at labels, I read fat and carbs, and I touch things. And I look at expiration dates, which most people do. They pick up items. You don't know how many people touched that item just before you did.
Yeah,
and so I got to the checkout and I thought, I just touched hundreds of items, and I called the manager over.
And the cashier did too, touched every single item.
And then the cashier moved it. And I talked to the manager. I said, you guys have wipes outside the grocery store. When you get your cart, you can get a couple of wipes. And we always, for years, we have wiped down the cart, the handles, everything I touch. In fact, I have lately been keeping 2 of them in my hand. And anytime I do touch something, I wipe it down or I pick it up with the wipe in my hand. But I got to the checkout and I said, you guys need to have the tubs of the Clorox or, these things that I'm buying, these hand wipes here, not just on the outside, but when people are leaving,
right.
Because I've personally just touched 300 things. I don't want to get sick as a customer, and you don't want your employees to get sick.
Okay.
She's like, oh, we can't do that.
This is your question. This is my question. The other night, and I sent you guys this podcast to listen to. It's frightening, but Dr. Hatfield actually said that the vaccines for all these different things that we're talking about, none of them are made in America. Does that concern you?
Well, yeah, because we're obviously not going to be the first priority when it comes to getting a virus, a viral vaccine. Certainly, a lot of these vaccines are most probably come from Asia. And so that's one big issue.
But, Donald Trump, love him or hate him, he signed an executive order to start making these vaccines in America. And that was at the end of last year, which is a great thing. So,
well, the question is, are any of the companies going to, take up the flag? Because a lot of these pharmaceutical companies, it's all about the money for them. If it's financially feasible and profitable for them to make these vaccinations, which is a lot of research and development, a lot of money goes into this. If they think it's monetarily worth it, then they will. Now, Donald Trump signing a piece of paper may not make Johnson & Johnson or these other pharmaceutical companies, Merck, decide that they are going to try to do this. Or they might see dollar signs floating around and say, hey, this is a great idea. I would like to see more of our medications made here. I hate that most of our medicines come from China.
We make very little stuff here at all. I mean, there's no cell phones that are made in the United States. None. How many cell phones are there in the United States? And none of them, 0, are made here.
They might be some of the parts put together now, but They're not made here. They assembled
Yeah,
some of them.
Like the Apple logo.
Apple assembles things that were made elsewhere
Right.
here.
Okay.
Are N95 mask an N95 mask? Like you can go to the paint section of Home Depot and they have some for paint, some for dust, some
Yes.
for, are they N95 is an N95 no matter what the label.
Yeah, but you have to
There's
make,
letters.
they're probably not N95s. They're probably R95s or P95s. In other words, oil proof or oil resistant. And the N stands for non-oil resistant because they don't have to be oil resistant to prevent germs, bacteria and viruses and stuff like that from getting into you. So basically, you don't, I don't know how much they cost, but basically these are specifically meant for medical purposes, and they're probably cheaper than a lot, per unit than a lot of the other ones.
So the ones from Home Depot won't work?
Well,
I haven't seen the ones from Home Depot myself, or I haven't looked for them.
But they do have
do they say N95? Do they say N95?
Some of them do, yes. Mhm.
If they say
they're
N95,
N95
they're N95s.
and they say NIOSH, that means they're approved, because there are some masks that put N95 on them that are not approved by our government standards, and they're mislabeled. Like the mask that you see that might have like a cartoon or something on them, but those are not N95. So you really have to look at the labeling, and your mask is going to have labeling here. You need to take a look and see.
Okay.
They say NIOSH, which is the National
Right.
Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, I saw this meme that this lady took her bra and doubled it up and put it over her head and around her mouth and nose. Will that work?
Wow.
I have no idea how many microns at a filter.
I'll be back. Where do you keep
I
your
have
bras?
I have my bra right on here. I'm
And
not taking it off.
I'm going to go to Amy's dresser and I'm going to try it on, and I'll be back in a few minutes.
Yes, but you can't be exposed to coronavirus, so this is not a legitimate test.
Well, I don't think that it probably, the thing is you have to have the right fit. So what fits your breast may not fit your face.
Well, I'll tell you what I did.
What?
We were in the movies. We went to a movie last Wednesday, and it was during the day. We thought, well, no one's going to be here. It was Star Trek and
Star Wars.
Star Wars, Trek, whatever. But of course, 2 seats over from me, these people brought their sick child. So the whole movie, he's coughing, and so I had to sit with the movie because the movie theater somehow was full, with my shirt up over my nose, turned sideways. So I was trying to distance myself from this kid. I know he didn't have coronavirus, but I didn't want whatever he did.
Let me say that if there was a viral outbreak in that community, we would not be going to the movie. Oh, there she is.
That's not a good fit. Look at her nose.
That's not a good fit.
It's open around her eyes.
Remember what you do is
She's
for a
just
fit.
trying to get it.
You
YouTube
breathe.
hits.
You breathe in. Remember the proper fit. Breathe in deeply, and it should indent if there's a proper fit. Breathe out, and no air should get out. You can see there was space just between her nose and the top of her bra. But very interesting.
She's just trying to be popular.
I'm sure she's very popular
with the male viewers.
I'm sure she's very popular.
I mean, I have a fancy bra and I could do that too and get some hits, but I'm not into that. I'm not. I'm a professional.
Let me go back and see if there's some questions I asked, the ones that were just recently. Again, how about any boosting your immune system is one of the biggest keys. And what some of the things you guys recommend to do that besides elderberry, which we've talked about? Are there just eating better?
Well, of course, there's lots of different
Fruits and
Fruit-
vegetables. We need to make
berries, high in antioxidants,
absolutely.
vitamin C.
I
very
went to when I
useful.
went to the grocery store today. He asked me to get fruit. I got him bananas. I got him oranges. I got him apples,
You got
and
me
I bought
strawberries.
strawberries and blueberries. Another really good one. Strawberries were actually on sale today. I don't know why. Oh, you know what? Probably because Valentine's Day is coming up. But fruits and vegetables. If they say shop the outside of the store, not the
Right.
inside of the store.
Right.
So you go along the fresh things. I go for anything that says organic, non-pesticide, no high fructose corn syrup. Read your labels. Just try to eat a healthy diet without preservatives and
high in fruits,
weird food.
high in fruits and vegetables. Maintain a healthy weight for your height and age.
Exercise.
Don't smoke. If you drink alcohol, drink in moderation. Get a lot of sleep and hydrate
that's
yourself.
important. I actually want to really emphasize sleep because there's probably very few of us that get enough sleep. We all go to bed late. We have to watch Hulu and Netflix and Disney Plus and I don't know what other 100 other stations that we can get on demand movies. Oh, Apple Plus now has a movie subscription. But anyway, we're staying up too late. We're not getting enough sleep. We have got so much on our mind. We're inundated with information.
And we're chronically dehydrated. We do not get enough
Hand me
fluids.
that water right now.
That's right. Here's some water.
Please.
Basically, I was told by a registered dietitian that I should be drinking.
There you go.
Basically, my weight, or not my weight, the number of ounces that I weigh in kilograms every day. So for me, that would be
240.
80, about 80 ounces or so, about 175.
80
so
ounces. And this one is 16?
16.
Yes,
so I got to
careful.
eat 5 of these, or drink 5 of these a day to be normally hydrated, according to her.
Give her water.
Which he never does. And they yell at him every time he goes in there. You're not.
Some water, right?
You're not. He
Hey,
says,
don't drink after each other.
No, that's okay. We're not sick.
Okay. So I went to Home Depot this week and I did find they have latex gloves, they have goggles, they have Tyvek suits. I didn't see any with the hoodie. I didn't buy any of it. We've been doing this a while.
For investigation, right?
Yeah. And they actually, they had individual, like a pack of 3 or 5 N95 masks, the bulk ones of 20. I didn't see any of them left, but everything that you're discussing that you've kind of for prevention, the goggles, I think they were like $5. The gloves, you could buy boxes of 100. Is there any particular ones? There's latex, non-latex, all this kind of.
You should use nitrile gloves, the non-latex variety. Well, there's an epidemic of latex allergies in this country.
Yeah,
and not just.
I just want to show them the word nitrile. Nitrile.
So that's what it looks like. And basically, what happens is that you may not be allergic to it yourself, but the people that you're touching, that you're giving care to, may be allergic and may wind up having some ill effect as a result of it. So there are a lot of latex allergies in this country, and so always go with nitrile gloves if you can.
Okay, I'm going to go back. You actually had a slide. Well, I don't know where it is. Yeah, dude, just hang on 1 minute of something. I mean, of course you sell a lot of this stuff in your store, but right here it is. Let me hit this. Whoops, wrong button. Now I'm going to share that slide. So right here. So right, I mean, you have kits for this on your store, right?
Right, we have pandemic kits.
I just want to say a quick history about that. We actually started selling this in 2014. I didn't just come up with this a week ago and say, oh my gosh, I need to put together a pandemic kit. This kit, if anyone wants to use the Wayback Machine, has been on my store since October of 2014. So for over 5 years, this has been my pandemic kit.
Keep that slide up.
Yep.
Okay, well, that you're looking at just a portion of the pandemic kit, and by the way, those biohazard bags are also part of it. You get a few of the smaller ones, you get a couple of the big ones,
right?
and you get regular masks, and you get N95 masks, and you
Right.
get the coveralls and gloves. Just
You
go
get
to the
face
website.
shields,
I don't want to.
goggles.
I don't want this to be.
I'm an option if you need it.
I know
I
you
don't
didn't
it
want to sell
be
your
an ad.
products,
No.
but I did see this, and I called you guys today, and we talked, and all I heard in the background was Joe taping, and
Yeah,
Amy kept saying, "Stop it! I can't hear. Stop it!"
I'll tell you, if
We have been inundated. I will say I've been very blessed by my resource, which is a hospital supplier, the biggest hospital supplier in the world, or at least in this country, Medline. And they've been hooking me up. I got very, very lucky because they're now rejecting every single order that comes through for any of these items is immediately rejected. And I know this because I tried to order something that I haven't ordered in the past 2 weeks, and it was immediately rejected. Thankfully, it's not part of this kit.
Now, I'll tell
But
you
they're
that
shutting everybody down.
I'll tell you why is they had one order that was for 1 million masks.
A million. My
A
rep
million.
told me he had one order for 1 million masks over the weekend. I don't know where it was going.
Was that from China?
It absolutely could have been. He didn't tell me who it was from, but I mean, there's a serious shortage.
I suspect the military.
I just placed an order today. It says it's in progress for 10 more cases of these N95 masks because they're going crazy, insane buying them. And I'm trying to keep up because I know people want them, and it makes you feel good when you are a prepper and you want to be prepared for something that may or may not happen, that you have it. And goodness, this doesn't go bad. Thank goodness. Your goggles don't go bad. Your biohazard doesn't go bad. Your surgical masks don't go bad. So these are kits actually that you can keep for a long, long time. They don't have, things that are just going to expire on you. So, which is a good thing.
So let me ask you this question.
Okay.
So I'm looking at this photo of things that you have in this kit. What would you say the percentage of the items in that kit are actually made in America, or would they be made in China?
I would say none. I will tell you, I just looked at the box when I was looking at these N95s. These are made in Malaysia.
Okay. Because people that make the goggles and the gloves, when they have a major outbreak, other countries won't be able to get them.
No, they won't.
Right.
I'm trying to see where this is made.
And I'm not jumping on you guys for buying things from China, because some things just aren't made in America anymore.
Vietnam.
Made in Vietnam.
Vietnam.
DuPont. Everyone can read DuPont.
So this is
made
a classic American company made in Vietnam, and
it's just the way it is.
We are not making things in this country anymore.
No.
This is
so
made,
we have to
these are made in China. It says right there, made in China.
Right.
It's what am I gonna do?
I know. I'm not blaming you guys. It's just, I guess, I'm a America first kind of guy.
They took over our industries. It's really horrible. It's really sad. And I would love it to change. I would love for every single item that I ever sell to be made by, some small mom and pop business in America.
Well,
just
at
like
least,
we are.
At least it's designed and packed by a small mom and pop business.
That's true.
So when American companies can get this, who's going to get it first? The military, government?
Military.
Yes, military and government.
And government.
I guarantee you they have already contacted this company and said, we're first. We're first, and you need it, because I got an email. I got an email from the rep, actually my rep's boss, 2 days ago when I saw aprons that I ordered were rejected. I have never seen an order that I've ever replaced rejected, but I hadn't ordered it within the past 90 days. Like I had ordered everything else. I knew over the weekend I needed to get this quickly. And last week I started ordering. Every day I've placed at least 4 or 5 orders. It was the first rejection. She wrote me a letter and she said, sorry, all orders for anything that has to do with pandemic preparedness will be immediately rejected and reviewed for purchase within the past 90 days. So they're just shutting everybody down, and then they'll let you know if they're going to allow you to buy that or not.
Now, you had mentioned Forrest, Dr. Hatfield, and I had a couple of notes from his interview, and he basically said what I suspected is that these orders are going to what's called a strategic national stockpile. And that you would think is something that, well, that would go to the citizens if a outbreak of, let's say, coronavirus turned out to be something really bad. But he says it's actually just meant to maintain the continuity of government.
Mhm.
To maintain, and the theory is that if you can maintain the government, then society won't destabilize and you'll still have a country. But the items that the government is buying doesn't necessarily go to its citizens. It goes to whatever it takes to maintain the continuity of government.
So right now they're having somewhat of a situation in China. And I guarantee you a lot of these masks they make a lot of masks in China. I guarantee you, whatever company, it might not be 3M, it's another company. And as soon as they're coming off the production line, they're going to cities, governments, militaries throughout China as fast as they can make them. If that happens in America, we won't have enough masks. We wouldn't have enough masks for the city of New York.
I'll tell you one thing.
And we wouldn't be able to get them either.
And
Yeah.
not only that,
That's already a problem. If you've looked on Amazon, that most of those sellers are out. This is currently unavailable.
All right, we just happen to
I've already seen it.
Yeah. But I wanted to just say one other thing is that we don't have enough hospital beds. Our medical infrastructure, even though it's a lot better than it was a few years ago, we learned some hard lessons with Ebola when that guy from Liberia came over, wound up dying here and infecting a couple of nurses in Dallas. We changed a lot of our systems. So we have more hospital beds than we've had before that can handle infectious disease. But according to the virologist that Steve interviewed a while ago, basically he says that we have 200% less beds than we need, hospital beds than we need for contagious disease outbreaks, and we have 400% less intensive care unit beds.
Mm-hmm.
And the intensive care unit beds are what people are going to need if there was a coronavirus outbreak here, because 1 in 5, as I mentioned, wind up having pretty severe respiratory damage. Actually, the virus attacks the linings, the cells that line the lungs. And so that is a big issue. I mean, it really taxes the infrastructure medically, not only of places like China, but it would wreak the same havoc here in the United States.
You know what else Dr. Hatfield said? The McCoys were, no, that's
yeah, McCoys are a bunch of sons of guns, aren't they? Yeah.
He said that I think our healthcare system right now is down 50,000 healthcare workers.
That's true, especially and down doctors too, especially in general practice. General practice and family doctors, it's not sexy anymore. Everybody wants to be a specialist, wants to be doing dermatology or reading x-rays, things like that, not touching people. And so that's why I think it's important that we train physician's assistants and nurse practitioners like Amy.
Thank you.
And I'm a big supporter. I was one of the first doctors in the state of Florida to have midwives in an obstetric practice, along with other doctors that I had. And I still believe that strongly. And it's still being fought tooth and nail by at least the Florida Medical Association. They
do not
think
get
it's a huge turf battle. Let's not talk about
that. Not gonna talk about it.
But anyhow, that's that.
So someone just asked for your website, and I always do this wrong. Okay. I'm putting it up now. It's doomandbloom.net. They didn't come on here to sell anything, and
I don't hear
good
like
that.
No.
But you need
buy the appropriate stuff.
Yeah, you need to buy stuff from these guys. They're here to help you.
No,
not
not
only
what we're
that,
saying.
and,
But anyhow, thank you. Thank you very much.
Nice.
But what the important thing is that we publish the contents of all of our kits freely for anybody to see. We don't care if you buy any of our stuff. We just want you to get the stuff on the list.
And also, they in their medical, their survival medical handbook, there's information in there that you can't get other places, like the fish antibiotics, how much to take if someone gets sick, if you have a an infection or whatever. You can't get that information. They have that with weight, your weight. Oh yeah, and then there's the new one, you guys, that you just held up. But these guys have been in the industry forever. They help preppers. I don't know a prepper that doesn't have your survival medical handbook or
That's
medicine
very kind.
handbook.
Thank you.
It's like a staple. You have to own that. Do you have to have that knowledge? And you can't, we're not all doctors, but that information can help us when information is impossible. So you don't get the electronic copy. I don't even know if you have electronic copy. You need the actual physical copy of the book. Let me tell you how nice they are. So we're in Asheville. I know you guys remember this. You probably don't want me to tell you this story, but the guy was working the booth with me, had a earlier edition of the survival medical handbook or medicine handbook. I keep pronouncing it. And he had all these sticky notes and underlined. You remember that?
I do.
And it was worn.
It looked like he had attached it to the back of his truck and dragged it down a dirt road for about 10 miles.
And it was worn.
It was used and abused and loved.
And you grabbed the book and you brought it to your heart and you go, oh, I love seeing this. And you were so impressed. You went to your booth, you got the latest version, and you gave it to him free of charge.
I had to.
I mean, that is just crazy. I mean, that says volumes about, you know what else you did for this guy? I'm not sure if you knew this, but he talked to you about a bag. He bought the big first aid bag or trauma bag, and he didn't get like the latest stuff you put in it, and you gave him that as well.
Oh yeah, I went through it to see what I had added because I can't stand any square inch in my bags. I got to put something else in it. So I've been adding over the past 10 years, and he had bought it a couple of years earlier. So I was like, let me see what I've added since you bought it. Right. And I gave him all that stuff. Yeah, because I want him to have the good stuff. That's
awful nice. You've never given me anything.
Except my love, love.
Wait. I do have a quick story. So we went out to eat on a Friday night. And I remember, and I came back and, I'm waiting for the check. And my friend Eric said, Dr. Bones took care of her, Joe took care of her. I'm like, oh, okay. And I thanked you. So the very next night we go out to eat. And I remember getting up right before anybody was thinking about the bill, I went to the actual waitress and said, hey, I'm buying this table's food. And she goes, no, that gentleman's already given me his credit card. And I was trying to maybe help, to get you back and pay for it. You already handed her your credit
You're
card.
very sweet. No, we like to take care of people when we go out to dinner with them.
We've been blessed by our relationships with so many people, great people like you, Forrest.
We give and give and give. We're going to give till we're not here anymore.
And a lot of the people that are listening right now in the chat room, we know them. We've met them at shows and talked to them. So we're just very, very glad to be part of the preparedness community.
Well, let's wrap this up with a couple things. Okay. You do have things for sale. I know that's not why you're doing this. You have some videos.
Yes,
we do.
Like hundreds of yes, lots of them.
You got doomandbloom.net, and people can find your store there. Your book is there. They can also go to Amazon and get the book, but buy it from your store because you make more money off of it.
No, actually, we're fine with Amazon. They're our publisher. So no, you're not hurting my feelings. Okay. The only reason I offer it is just in case somebody wants a little signature. Otherwise, please buy it wherever you want.
We sign the books if you buy them from the store.
Yeah.
Okay. And also, I know you're going to be, I'm looking forward. We're going to be at Heritage Life Skills together.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's coming up in
May.
May. That's
May 8th, you're going to talk on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And then May 9th, we're actually going to do a suture class. A suture stapling wound care class. I think they put us at 1:00 for that. And then that's it. And then Sunday is another day of hanging out and talking with people and answering questions and making that eye-to-eye contact that we've been missing, because there really haven't been any kind of homesteading or preparedness shows for a couple of years. They really just
people are
taking
talking
a
about your
nosedive.
board game. People are talking about your board game. You did a board game.
Yeah, we did a Kickstarter. I tell you, we just come up with the craziest ideas sometimes.
They're like
let's make a board game.
They're like board games.
Oh my gosh, that was fun.
So any other announcements or where you're going to be or anything? And
Heritage Life Skills would be, I guess, the next physical place that we're going to be.
How about any classes? I mean, you teach classes all the time, I know.
Well, yeah, but I haven't actually made a schedule. I've kind of been a little overwhelmed between the holidays, family visits, and the coronavirus.
Wow.
Sort of, taking it. And I will say one thing that I haven't probably told people is I'm trying to make a little bitty book for like a pocket.
Oh,
yeah.
That's one of our new
It's
for tiny people
on my list.
Yes. Tiny people like us.
Tiny people with good eyesight. No, because we have that giant 700-page book, and I know it's hard to carry around. So a little bitty book, not too many pages, just meat and potatoes.
So if we need supplies you got enough supplies for a large family? They asked also, someone said Expo in Dallas, Texas.
Oh, what is that?
I don't know. And then Mother Earth Expos. You go to Mother Earth every now and then.
Yes, we do. Mother Earth in Texas, I thought was that last month? I don't know. I don't remember.
What? Belton?
Yeah,
Belton's in
Asheville
February.
canceled theirs. They don't have one in Asheville this year.
I know. They're moving to, I think it was Memphis. I think they're doing one over in Memphis, which is interesting. I haven't decided whether to go to that.
And then do you know who Southern Ohio Prepping is?
Yes, we do.
Because he is
David.
you're going to be on their show next Wednesday night at 9.
Next Wednesday,
Yes,
yeah.
we will be.
Yep.
We sure will.
See, I don't mind sharing the competition. They're not competition. I'm just kidding. Actually, I think I watched you guys on that channel one night or some channel.
Yes, we did.
Yeah,
we had we had David and Gail were our hosts, and that was a lot of fun.
So,
and they're actually going to teach me how to do this streaming too, this YouTube streaming. When I have a moment to breathe.
Well, hey, I want to thank you guys. Doomandbloom.net. That's where you go. Their book. I mean, you got everyone here. You know them. You're like the presidents. I mean, you're like the representative of preppers.
Oh, I just want to be the surgeon.
Just make him be the
surgeon general. I want to be the surgeon Lance Corporal.
You can be the grandpa of medical prepping.
And you guys are on PrepperNet's expert panel, and I appreciate you guys doing that. You're good friends. I can't wait to see you guys in Waynesville, North Carolina.
Well, I certainly hope that everybody signs up for PrepperNet in their individual areas. There are so many different. How many total groups do you have now?
I think 64.
That's incredible. I mean, at a time when preparedness is sort of semi-dormant, I think
it's steady.
You really have such an active bunch of groups in PrepperNet. I think it's wonderful.
Yep. Join PrepperNet.
Well, I appreciate you. Hey guys, thank you for coming on. And gosh, we're past 11. I told people it's going to be late at night. That's just the way we work. So
wow. We had a great
anything
time.
Short, and I'm not ever going to cut anybody off for questions.
Except me.
Kiss me.
Someone did say earlier, Amy keeps cutting him off. And it was like,
because he doesn't let me get a word in edgewise if I don't do that.
Hey guys, hey, thank you for joining us. Doomandbloom.net, PrepperNet.com. Appreciate it, guys, and we'll have you on in a few months, I'm sure, if not earlier.
Sounds great.
Okay, you
All right,
guys
God
take
bless.
care, and
God
take care. Bye.
Thank you.